What's going on, everybody? AQ Devi here, and the full reveal of Black Ops 7 Zombies is upon us. We've received 2 massive blog posts and numerous behind-the-scenes videos detailing so much new to expect in this game to set it apart from Black Ops 6, and I can't wait to get into it all and give you guys my thoughts. I'll be splitting this video up into segments, beginning with things new to Black Ops 7 as a whole, moving on to things new to Ashes of the Damned at launch, and finishing up with some additions and changes made to systems we already have from Black Ops 6. So if you'd like to skip to a specific section, I'll leave timestamps on screen now, with some deeper specifics in the description down below. If at any point you find yourself enjoying this video, a like, comment, and subscribe are always appreciated, but without further ado, let's get into it. To start, I have to begin with the Cursed mode. Our rumored Classic mode is a reality here in Black Ops 7 and has much more complexity than I think we had originally anticipated. For starters, this mode will not be available initially when you first boot up the game, and no, it won't be coming in a season later, but it will actually have to be unlocked in some mysterious way. Theories on this have run rampant, and I think the general consensus is that this mode will be unlocked after completing the Easter egg on any given map. Now, how this would translate to survival maps, I don't know, as I don't believe these survival maps will have a main quest, but if this is the case, I think it's safe to assume that completing the Ashes of the Damned main quest will unlock Cursed mode for both the full map as well as its survival maps. However, this is unconfirmed. Now, I personally think this is actually a very interesting implementation of the mode, as hardcore players like myself and others have been begging for this sort of thing as a way to challenge ourselves, and what better way to prove we're up to that challenge than to complete the map on its default setting. Consider it a barrier to entry that not only rewards hardcore players with a mode they've been begging for, as well as pushing casuals to join this club and really bring themselves back to the old days of starting pistols, perk limits, and so on. I will point out, however, that this unlock condition seems very obvious compared to the mysterious criteria the blog post and other sources point to. So while the Cursed mode may require Easter egg completion, there may be more than meets the eye, and I myself am fine with that as well for the same reasons I mentioned. So what is this Cursed mode, and how does it compare to the classic systems seen in the fan favorite Black Ops 3, for example? Well, once Cursed mode is unlocked, the only changes made will be the lack of a loadout weapon, aka starting with only a pistol, no minimap, and a classic per shot point system. Now, for some, these were really all that were asked of to bring back that classic zombies feeling, but with the massive changes the mode has experienced in this modern era, there is still a lot to adjust to really capture this feeling. Which brings us to Relics, the Cursed mode's unique system of finding classic era totems scattered around the map with unique conditions, which can be applied to every subsequent match to really strip things back and add to that difficulty. Some examples from the blog post include a 4 perk limit or the removal of ammo caches, but there are seemingly plenty more to discover and unlock to punish the masochists who really prefer a brutal experience. Now, I'm not the first to say how exciting this is. For years now, players have been creating their own challenges by just ignoring certain systems of the modern era to recapture that old feel. Hell, I've made a handful of videos on this very thing, trying to play Black Ops 6 as if it were Black Ops 1, 2, and 3 by limiting my pack-a-punches and restricting my allowed perks. But with this relic system, it will allow for a much smoother implementation of that by truly holding your feet to the fire that you set for yourself. Not to mention, we have no idea how to actually gain access to these relics, which seem to be a task in their own right. This mode really does seem like a love letter straight from Treyarch, telling the hardcore audience that if we really want it, well, we're gonna have to earn it. And if the hardcores are upset at that, well, then I don't need to explain the irony there. You guys still with me? That was only the first bit, so strap in. Okay, so moving away from the Cursed mode, I'd like to take a quick moment to talk about wall jumping. While it was originally only confirmed for multiplayer, the blog post has made clear that this evolution to the Omni movement system will apply across all modes in Black Ops 7. And while in my mind this initially sounds OP as hell, I can't help but think back to the idea of using jetpacks in Advanced Warfare zombies and how not OP that was by way of creative balancing decisions, so I hope Treyarch can deliver a more refined experience than that and make the mode still feel like zombies with this inclusion to our movement. And the topic of wall jumping will come back up later, so I'll put a pin in it for now. Next up, we have some additions to our enhancement arsenal, and if you're wondering what that means, well, Treyarch has dubbed all perks, ammo mods, field upgrades, basically anything that can be augmented as enhancements. The additions that are unique to the launch of Black Ops 7 include the Fireworks ammo mod, the Toxic Growth field upgrade, and the brand new perk called Wisp Tea. Of course, Fireworks returns from Black Ops 3, one of the fastest killing ammo mods by activation, It's almost reminiscent of a cluster grenade in the way that it has this large initial explosion with multiple smaller ones finishing off the stragglers. And of course the minor augments tied to this are what you would expect: increased flare amount, larger area, reduced cooldown. The majors are also a bit inspired, such as Big Game for elites or Starburst for faster detonation. The only unique ones that catch my eye are Weeping Willow and Fire Wheel, which seem to create a more controlled activation akin to something like the Energy Mine. Personally, not a lot of big changes to the mod, which is okay given how effective it already was in Black Ops 3. Now, Toxic Growth was a field upgrade that I feel the community missed. I saw a good amount of people calling for its return after its initial appearance in Cold War. It has the unique aspect of being an almost exclusively defensive field upgrade, being a placeable thorn bush that can block incoming hordes from specific paths that are too important to leave to gunfire alone. Now again, we have some pretty simple minor augments as expected, but I'd like to point out the plant food augment, which has a chance to drop healing fruit upon kills, is quite unique and really adds to a more camping playstyle that I think has lost some of its flair in this modern era, unless you count the mutant injection spam, but more on that later. Some of the more unique major augments include Core Deception, which will brain rot the first non-elite who enters, or Zuckery, which will transform the first non-elite into the Toxic Growth itself. This is easily one of the more unique field upgrades we've seen, and I'm glad it's bringing some extra power going into Black Ops 7. And of course, what is a new zombies game without a brand new perk to elevate us? And this time around we are introduced to Wisp Tea. Described as a protective ethereal creature, and that's ethereal with an E, this perk seems to be somewhat inspired by the extremely niche Blood Wolf Bite from Black Ops 4. It is summoned for 30 seconds after inflicting a large amount of damage and will proceed to slay every enemy it can in the given time. And while this wisp does not take on the form of a wolf this time around, you are instead able to choose its form using the major augments. The Mask of Wrath transforms the wisp into a demon, inflicting even more damage if its base form isn't cutting it. The Mask of Salvation transforms the wisp into a fox, which can revive you up to 3 times in a game, allowing for even more chances at reaching your goal for any given match. The Mask of Distraction transforms the wisp into a monkey that, much like other familiar monkeys in this mode, will attract and damage the horde in an area if you find yourself in a pinch. And the Mask of Benevolence will pacify the wisp into a maiden that will no longer do damage, but instead periodically heal you for a more defensive approach. Even the minor augments bring the goods here, with ones like Fetcher grabbing items and power-ups excluding nukes, or Zombie Sitter literally holding the final zombie in a round for you, which will no doubt be a staple for solo Easter egg lovers. While we're touching on perks, the core set of power-ups has been shaken up in a massive way in Black Ops 7, which now includes the random perk power-up in its rotation. Now this is only added into any given game once all party members have purchased a specific number of perks. We don't yet know what this amount is, but it's safe to say this would be an incredibly strong power-up to gain access to, potentially the strongest there is before you gain every perk you want, and I have some mixed reactions to this depending on how it will be implemented. On one hand, I am a strong advocate for no perk limit by default. I think Zombies is meant to be a playground, and a playground can be extremely fun when you have all the toys. That unstoppable feeling when you're stacked with so many buffs you don't see an end in sight is truly a fun experience. But on the other hand, as we discussed talking about the cursed mode, a match can be so gratifying when you push past the odds of multiple pressures and still come out on top. So all I ask is there be a relic for cursed mode that removes the random perk power-up from the core rotation. Free perks in the past were meant to be something achieved by doing a specific side Easter egg rather than something given out as a participation trophy. I think this would allow for a good line in the sand to be drawn between the default mode with all the bells and whistles and the more punishing cursed mode that forces you to make the harder decisions, like what perks you're going to take when you can't have them all. Another small addition that was a personal pet peeve of mine was the removal of Pack-a-Punch Camo pausing in Black Ops 6 by meleeing the machine. If you don't remember, in Cold War for example, if you really like the second PAP camo on a map but not the third, you could melee the machine before your third upgrade and keep the second camo. With some of the more hit-or-miss Pack-a-Punch camos of the modern era, this system was sorely missed in Black Ops 6, and its return in Black Ops 7 is such a small quality of life change that makes a big difference. Now, I briefly brought up the Mangler injection spam that has plagued the Black Ops 6 high rounds since launch, and while I don't believe it's confirmed they will be returning in Black Ops 7 by the wording of the blog post, we are getting a brand new support item called the Disciple Injection. This device, like its mutant counterpart, will allow you to temporarily transform yourself into a disciple and give you multiple abilities that are unique to this entity. In this form, you're able to launch zombies at great lengths, drain the life of any zombie, special or elite, and emit a sonic blast that will stun the nearby enemies. Now, if you're like me, you'll be having two thoughts right now. One, this sounds incredibly badass and I can't wait to try this for myself. And two, I hope this is better balanced for the game as to not be the item we rely on for high rounds. I want what gets us to those crazy records to be a test of skill over endurance. Zombies has had multiple R3 simulator moments, and if this game will break that cycle, then consider me sold on this addition to the mode. One thing I wanted to save for later into this section of the video is the inclusion of the brand new mechanic in Black Ops 7 called Overheal. And that is because I'm not fully sure what to make of this with the information given at this time. The way it's described, it sounds as though you're able to temporarily go past your health cap by, quote, employing specific tactics, which will then act as a buffer to your standard health, depending on your health cap from things like Juggernog or stim shots. Now, in reading this, I'm personally picturing spending all my salvage on stim shots and boosting my health to 2000 or something before a boss fight. I'm not sure if it works this way, but given how little we know at this moment, I don't have a strong grasp on the mechanic, and at minimum, it sounds like it can be a strong tool in the right circumstance. To finish off the new to Black Ops 7 portion of this video, I'd like to touch on one of the biggest quality of life improvements we've received in zombies since its inception, and that is round preservation. What this is essentially a rule the game will follow, and that rule is simply that the round will not end until the zombie either dies to natural causes or a player chooses to kill the last zombie. Now, at first glance, this sounds pretty standard for the mode, but I'd like you to imagine the amount of times a round has passed while you're on an Easter egg step because one of the final zombies magically decided to become brain rotted, which then took out the rest of the horde and left you both shocked and saddened. As you now know, you'll have to grind the next round and try not to make the same mistake. Well, with Black Ops 7, this is no longer a problem, as any charmed or brain rotted enemy is no longer able to kill the final zombie of a round. Thank you, Treyarch, thank you. I have avoided brain rot like the plague for situations just like this, and now I can let out a sigh of relief that it is now usable without such an annoying byproduct of the effect killing my vibes. Alright, first section done. If you've truly made it this far into the video, I could kiss you on the lips. Thank you so much for listening to my ass ramble about this little side mode that means so much to me. But let's get back into it. Up next, let's talk about the new things that are at this moment only confirmed for the launch map Ashes of the Damned, or possibly even some of these survival maps that will go along with Ashes. The first thing I gotta talk about is the new Aura Farm Wonder Weapon King, and that is the Necrofluid Gauntlet. I'm gonna say that one more time, it's called the Necrofluid Gauntlet. Like, are we serious? This thing looks like a Daedric gauntlet from Skyrim had sex with death itself, not to mention the cryptic language, which I pray is translatable and will be part of a language used later in this game, but that is purely the visual side. Along with its incredible exterior, this weapon boasts the sick power of turning this fluid into spikes that will pierce through the hordes, return like Thor's freaking hammer, seemingly lifesteal as the blog post mentions vampiric tendencies, and even pull items and power-ups that the spikes may pick up on their journey. This is how you design a wonder weapon. We don't know just how this weapon will be balanced in the scope of the game yet, but it ticks off the 3 boxes of a great wonder weapon for me, which is look, power, and utility, and this thing looks to excel at all of these in spades. I cannot wait to get my hands on it, or in it, once the game releases. Now, we can't mention the combo of vibes and power without bringing up our new enemies on this map, that being the Ravagers and the Zursa. Firstly, the Ravagers are these impish creatures who appear to be extremely quick on their feet, seem to travel in packs, and have a taste for our hard-earned loot and vehicle on top of our flesh. Well, of course, we're no stranger to the weaker, smaller enemies and zombies with things like vermin and monkeys. The unique aspect of these guys targeting both our vehicle, which is said to be basically essential in our travels around the map, but also our salvage, equipment, and possibly other things like power-ups. These guys sound like absolute bastards, and I can already tell you I will take great pleasure in shooting these guys in the face for many, many hours. But with talking about the Ravagers comes also talking about the new elite enemy on this map, the Zursa. This is a zombie bear with beehives embedded into its flesh, which it's able to control and send the aptly named zombies our direction. And on top of this insanely creative ranged attack, the Zursa will also attack us with bite and claw melees, which will not only damage us, but leave us with a wounded effect, which I believe will slow health regen. The visual design of this thing alone is so appreciated, and for Treyarch to take a real creature and make it something so much more disgusting and disturbing really shows the amount of love and care poured into this thing. We see quite a few animations for this guy compared to previous elites, and that gives me such a strong hope for Black Ops 7 as a whole going into the game's lifecycle. I can't wait to take this guy on, maybe even 2 or 3 at a time, and see if its power truly matches its appearance. Of course, we have to bring up the wonder vehicle featured on Ashes of the Damned, Old Tessie. To get this thing moving, we'll have to find the Ted head lying somewhere around the Janus Towers Plaza starting area. After that, we're able to hit the road and travel to our heart's content, but that's not where the story of Old Tessie ends. Elsewhere around the map, you are able to beef up the power of the wonder vehicle by finding things such as an abomination carcass you can strap to the front, allowing you to shoot the electric beams from its mouths, or a DG2 turret that can be manned by another player. These are such thoughtful and unique upgrades where they could have easily just strapped a standard gun to the top or barbed wire on the front and called it a day. And details like this may go unnoticed for some of the player base, but not for me. Old Tessie will also be able to be temporarily disabled by things like the Ravagers or other enemy attacks, which is totally fair given the strength we see the vehicle possesses in some of the gameplay clips. It's an addition, not a necessity, and I think things like this are what will separate the game from something like Black Ops 6. To end this section, I'd like to really put a light on the various POIs we'll have access to on the Ashes of the Damned map. Of course, we have the most advertised section of the map called Van Dorn Farm, very clearly inspired by the farm section of Transit and featuring hanged corpses in or around the barn. Yes, it's hanged, not hung, and a rotting family trapped in time at a dinner table said to tell the story of their descent into madness. Now, I for one saw that original image of the family from super far away, and I did theorize this could have been our Victus crew. I had a whole thing about how after TOG they went back to a familiar place that also reminded them of home, which would have been sick. But I can respect that with this story, we may get something just as interesting while still leaving room for Victus to return another day. The Janus Towers Plaza will be our spawn area of the map. It definitely appears tame compared to the other sections of the map, but it still looks very nice visually with the ethereal energy wrapping around the towers and the skybox and fog just begging you to explore further. It gives a sense of mystery, which is such an underrated sensation to get in a spawn room, so I'm very happy with this. Also, points for being chronologically consistent as we're beginning right where the previous game left off. Now, Exit 115 brings us to Reba's Diner, another familiar location from this transit-inspired map, but of course having a story and layout of its own. To me, it looks a bit more open around the structure itself while still maintaining a claustrophobic inner space that will likely be pretty hard to comfortably maneuver in the higher rounds. I'm imagining getting stuck here with a Zursa on your ass and being backed into a corner, pumping every bullet you have into it and hoping it's enough to take it down. I can see Exit 115 making for some very fun challenges once we get our hands on it at launch. The Zarya Cosmodrome gives a taste of one of my personal favorite maps, Ascension, in the modern era with some differently styled layouts and some potentially intriguing lore, courtesy of a tease we got for it a bit back. A radio from a Soviet worker telling how the location and workforce were transported to the Dark Aether in an instant, freezing the rocket mid-launch. I really hope this gets delved into deeper as we play through the Easter egg of the map, or even through some intel scattered around the location, just to get a feel for what these guys experienced in real time during and after their trip to the Dark Aether. Now, Ashwood is one of the more interesting points of interest, as it almost gives me the aesthetic of a western town like Buried, but the layout we see is more similar to something like the generators in the trenches from Origins. We see these wooden buildings like a hotel and a church burning down in an absolute shambles, more bodies hanging all around the town with a good bit of verticality thanks to the bridge that goes over one of the lanes. This location got a good amount of love in the gameplay trailer, and I think this will be one of the better areas for hunkering down with a full team, with the way it's almost sectioned into multiple smaller bits. I think movement and spatial recognition will be critical here, knowing where every path will lead you, and having to think ahead whether the direction you're headed is towards safety or danger. I'm really excited to see how this specific location plays. And finally, probably the most unique POI within Ashes of the Damned, in my opinion, is Blackwater Lake. A cabin on the water with a lake view and something very peculiar suspended in midair just above. The cabin itself looks very quaint and cozy with a fireplace downstairs and the snow loosely packed just outside. Although the projector and movie room sets a sort of darker tone for me. This may just be my love for the movie Sinister, but something about a small quiet room with nothing but a projector gives me a grim feeling, and I really do hope this specific piece of the map is taken advantage of. But a clear highlight of this POI, and I would argue of the entire map, is this floating pyramid we see just above the water. It has this glowing triangle at its peak, and I cannot help but draw a similarity to the Construct, one of, if not the most powerful forces in the zombie storyline that we first learned about in Vanguard. Thanos also spoke about this pyramid in some intel found in the Reckoning boss fight area, but besides that we know very little about this structure's origin, purpose, or power. But I would absolutely bet every cent in my bank account that this pyramid will be used for some Easter egg on this map, and I am so excited to see what develops from that. Before ending this section, I'd like to very quickly touch on the fog that separates these locations, that houses some smaller POIs of its own, and promises to turn enemies' power, speed, and spawn rate up to 11. This will no doubt be an area I really try to conquer as a challenge once I get more comfortable with the map, and I'll be very curious to see how the fog plays in conjunction with the Rampage Inducer, Cursed Mode, and some of the more punishing relics active. The fog is also said to be littered with these explosive growths, so even if you're just passing through, it'd be smart to keep your head on a swivel. Alright, this is the second section down. Thank you all again for watching thus far. This is by far my most ambitious video, as I'm someone who typically creates smaller length, more easily digestible content. So if you're hearing this, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. My love for this mode is a core part of my being, so being able to share my thoughts and interact with you guys in this way is the biggest dream I could ever ask for. Getting into the third act of this already massive video, we're going to delve more into some additions and changes made to systems we're already familiar with from Black Ops 6 and before. Starting off with possibly my most exciting aspect being brought to Black Ops 7 is the upgraded Augment System. As I'm sure you've noticed, each of the new enhancements I mentioned before all feature 4 major and 4 minor augments, as opposed to the 3 majors and 3 minors we became familiar with during Black Ops 6. Well, this is not just a part of these new additions, but we are also being granted a new major and minor augment for every single enhancement featured from Black Ops 6. Some new standout minor augments include Impulse for Aether Shroud, allowing you to increase your movement speed when dealing shadow damage, Aftershock for Deadwire, giving you a chance to chain the stun effect to other enemies, Emergency Medical Kit for Quick Revive, allowing an additional crafted self-revive, and Stuntman for PhD Flopper, making use of the new wall jump mechanic, allowing explosions to be created while doing it. But even with some of these minor augments potentially changing the game, the majors are where the real juicy buffs come into play. Some of my personal favorites include Armormatic for Vulture Aid, allowing you to auto-equip armor plates on pickup, Ammo Surge for Speed Cola, granting a speed boost when reloading, Gravity Well for Shadow Rift, creating a black hole effect, basically free Casmirs, Necromancer for Healing Aura, reviving dead teammates, or After Image for Aether Shroud, creating a distraction clone of yourself to really get some free damage on the Horde. These new augments have the opportunity to completely change how we play this iteration of zombies compared to the past, but this isn't even the half of it. If you're able to completely master your research of any specific enhancement, you will be granted the ability to equip a second minor augment. This, in tandem with these new augments we're receiving, as well as new enhancements we'll be seeing at launch and during the life cycle of the game, it's no wonder we are going to be receiving some nerfs to certain systems in this game. We are going to be so goddamn overpowered that there will be no choice but to balance our current arsenal a tad. Even with combinations of augments we had access to in Black Ops 6, like with Juggernog, we can now use both hardened and durable plates at the same time, being able to take less projectile damage and gaining a speed boost from equipment kills with Stamina Up, many ammo mods being more powerful or long-lasting on top of having a reduced cooldown, and so much more. The sky really is the limit with this new system implementation, and I think this truly is an upgrade the augment system needed to feel more fleshed out. Now, if you've read the blog post or just noticed I've not mentioned some of your favorite enhancements, that's because 5 enhancements have been held back from the game's launch, but will be implemented at some point during Season 1. Those being the Lightmend and Shatterblast ammo mods, and the Tesla Storm, Frostblast, and Mr. Peak's field upgrades. Treyarch has promised their reappearance come some point in Season 1 will in fact bring a brand new major and minor augment, just as all the previous enhancements have. This is probably my only negative takeaway from this entire reveal, and I would be a lot more nervous if they hadn't mentioned Season 1 specifically, and instead re-fed it to us over the course of Black Ops 7's life cycle. So I'm fine to give the team some time to cook up some unique augments for these enhancements, and make sure they stay as balanced as the others that are returning in this mode. We also have some additions and changes to the Gobblegums system. For example, we're receiving some returning Gobblegums like Afterchase to keep your perks after going down, or Power Vacuum, which will allow power-ups to spawn much more frequently for a period of time. Of course, the new gums aren't all from the past, as we're also getting some new gums in the form of Round Off, which stops the rounds from increasing for 2 rounds, Gift Card to gain a flat 30,000 essence, and more. But it's not just new Gobblegums, as the system itself has some new features as well. For example, you are now able to crush a Gobblegum that you have equipped, which will grant you an amount of essence depending on the rarity of the gum. Now this will remove one of the gums from your actual stock, so the system should absolutely be used strategically for the right circumstances. Certain Gobblegums have also received some changes to how they function, such as any gum spawning a power-up will now automatically activate that power-up, as opposed to having to manually pick it up, and I can see this change having some pros and cons. For example, if you're in a sticky scenario, you don't want to have to spend extra time running toward the power-up, you want it activated at that moment. On the other hand, the time you grab a power-up can be very tactically timed in conjunction with other things going on at that time, so this will no doubt create some growing pains going from BO6 to 7. Additionally, the exit strategy Gobblegum now instantly exfils the player who uses it, which is huge for someone who thinks they may not be able to complete the new exfil conditions that we'll discuss next, or just doesn't feel like waiting for a round that allows for it. As for the changes to the exfil system itself, one of the simplest things we can notice is we now have to interact with a very familiar phone booth to initiate it. This looks similar, if not identical, to the phone booth we see Samantha Maxis in during the Cold War Zombies intro cinematic. I don't want to theorize too much on this here, but I do smell some lies told to us during the Reckoning Easter egg, and that's all I'll say for now. But outside of the lore, one of the bigger changes is absolutely the fact that specific players can exfil with or without the rest of the group. So if one person is ready to hop off, but the others want to keep the game going, now everyone can be satisfied. This is such a great quality of life improvement that doesn't force a specific group to pick and choose the perfect time to hop off. Everyone can now freely go at their own pace. On top of this, the exfil process is now more than just killing zombies in an allotted time, but instead taking down an HVT variant of some enemy to be allowed to leave unscathed. I think this adds a bit more to both deciding when to use this system, as well as utilizing the newfound power of the exit strategy Gobblegum. Another short and sweet quality of life change is the fact that armor tier 2 and 3 can be bought at the same location, and I definitely see two sides to this. There's a certain aspect I respect about putting the higher tier armor deeply into the map and rewarding you with it only once you've really made some progress in the match and gathered enough points to make the purchase. But at the same time, there were many times I prioritized offense over defense, and I had to twiddle my thumbs as I made my way far from my training spot just to get that last boost I needed. In those moments, I wished it were just closer to me, as I was in no danger when getting tier 3 armor. All I did was get down to the last zombies and run around for a couple of minutes to get it. So in general, I do consider this a good change, and I think if they want to do something similar, they should put something a bit more necessary in the early rounds deeper into the map, like they did with Juggernog on Reckoning, for example. We've also finally received a much needed facelift to the mystery box, both in look and utility. At least for Ashes of the Damned, the mystery box is styled to be the same as none other than the beautiful Origins box. And it's such a minor thing, but I really do hope we receive some other variations of the mystery box through the Black Ops 7 lifecycle. More notably though, the mystery box will no longer include melee weapons or score streaks. For the most part, melee weapons have been pretty similar to one another, with some changes to attack speed and reach between all the weapons, so taking these out of the weapon pool really allows for some more impactful box rolls. Removing score streaks though I think forces you to interact with the crafting table system more than in Black Ops 6, which is fine by me as usually far into a match you have plenty of salvage to get the streaks you want and don't want things like that to bloat the box any more than is needed. To make this even better though, they've now added Aether tools to the box as well as possible ground loot. So if you get a weapon that's not at the point of power you need at that moment, it's very possible to get that buff without having to grab a ton of salvage in the higher rounds. And I think this adds so much more utility to the box, which has been a long time coming in this modern era. Now there have also been some buffs and nerfs to our gunfire specifically. For example, the big game augment all across the board has been buffed, which I think is much needed as the chance was always so low before that hopefully now we can use it in a way that we the players intended it would work. On the other hand though, ammo mount effects will no longer count as critical kills unless they are actually inflicted on a critical location on the enemy. And per shot weapons like the overpowered Maelstrom shotgun will have a cooldown, which will bring them closer to a balanced place compared to the other more standard weapons like assault rifles and submachine guns. And honestly this is fair, since the buff to the Maelstrom, I can admit I've rarely gone back to any other weapon other than for the camo grind or as a challenge. So this will allow for more variety game to game, and to me, that is what Zombies is all about. The Wunderfizz has also received some changes, originally spawning in at round 25 across the board, will now spawn once a solo player physically purchases 4 perks, or if in a co-op game, every player purchases 3 perks and one player purchases 1 more. In this way, it's almost rewarding to players like myself who prioritize perks to get access to the rest of them sooner, and punishing those who ignore the mechanic to have to wait longer to receive the full extent of their perk arsenal. I'd say this is much more balanced and adds yet another strategic decision when planning how the player goes about any given game, which is absolutely critical to edging closer to that sandbox feeling so many people miss in Zombies. The Rampage Inducer has also received a subtle change, no longer spawning the fastest running zombies until round 20. Honestly, this is fine. It allows people who only use it in the early rounds to speed that portion of the match up without overwhelming them too quickly. There are some miscellaneous changes here, like ammo box prices now being dependent on the specific weapon, the salvage price for purple rarity being reduced, the HUD color being customizable, and somehow I'm sure there are still other things I missed. I'm a fan of these changes, I just don't personally have a lot to say about them. And finally, saving one of the biggest, most important changes for last, the super sprinters and armored zombies have been nerfed. Super sprinters will start spawning later into a match, have their rate of frequency reduced, and have their limit to the amount on the map reduced. This is incredible as it will make the high rounds much more manageable, which is a very welcome change. And the armored zombies have weaker armor and are no longer able to become super sprinters. I don't know which of these changes I prefer more, but they are welcome across the board, especially with all of them in combination with each other. The skill of zombies should not be overtaken just by being outrun. I personally think zombies should never run faster than our fastest walking speed and should instead be greater in numbers, but that's just my personal take. Wow. That was probably too deep a dive for even people who cared the most about this game, but if you have made it all the way through this video, start to finish, thank you. This video is a true test to see what the world thinks of some longer form content from me, so if at any point you found yourself enjoying this video, a like, comment, and subscribe are always appreciated. I am so damn excited for Black Ops 7 Zombies, and you can expect plenty of content on it coming up, including some farm survival footage from the beta in less than a week, so don't miss out. But until then, I've been AQDevi, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.